Hi, my name is Melvin Adams. I'm here with my wife Sandy, and we're here today to talk to you about Noah Webster Educational Foundation, how that got started. In the meantime, share a little bit about ourselves and our story, just to help you have a better understanding as we celebrate our first year as an organization. So, Sandy, let's talk a little bit about our family. You want to talk about our family?
Well, first of all, Melvin and I have been married almost 40 years, be 40 years in August, and we dated for 4 years before that, so we've known each other a long time. But over those 44 years, we've had 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls, and almost 20 grandchildren. The reason I say almost is because we have one due in the end of July, and we just had our 19th one a couple weeks ago, so we're very excited and very blessed parents and grandparents.
Awesome. So they're all scattered all over the country, and of course, as we think about our family, our children, our grandchildren, we think about the world we live in, just like every other parent and grandparent out there. You know, there are natural concerns, there are things that are going on, and we were talking and concerned about these kind of things. Well, we've been involved in education for a long time. I took my first teaching job right after, well, I took it before we got married, but literally we got married and we kind of took our honeymoon on our way to my first teaching job. That was in 1982, and was in education really almost ever since. So taught for quite a few years in the States in some different colleges. In 92, we went to Ukraine and we helped to start a Christian college there. We were the point person, went and got everything going, brought the team over, and that was quite an experience working internationally in that way. In 2000, we came home, we continued our work from the stateside, but as we traveled a lot, we were seeing our own country. We had been in other places, and I was traveling in a lot of other nations around the world, and we were seeing countries that were trying to escape socialism and Marxist societies and so forth, particularly Ukraine, after 75 years of communist socialism, and they were trying to gain their freedom. They were trying to become more Western and more with more freedom and so forth, and so what we were seeing, the changes in those parts of the world, but we were coming home and we were seeing really the opposite effect. And I might just add, I was born and raised in East Africa. My parents were missionaries there, and as a young person growing up, literally experienced the country of Ethiopia go from a democratic society to a socialist Marxist communist state, and saw a bloody revolution, all that. So I saw what the things that built up to that, and as we came back to the States, we saw some of those very same things going on here, and that became very concerning. And as normal as we see this pattern in countries around the world, where that usually starts is by indoctrinating the children and teaching them philosophy, and ultimately the revolutions happen almost always. Going clear back to the Bolshevik Revolution, it was young people, college-age students who led that revolution. And we just saw, wait a second, this is going to happen in our own country if we don't engage. So that led to lots of conversation and thinking about what can we do as we traveled. We were traveling the country, and one particular day we were just brainstorming, what are the issues, what are the needs. And so we were actually at a restaurant and we were getting something to eat, and my wife and I were talking. I said, honey, that's a great thing. We need to write this down. So she grabbed a napkin, started writing down some things, and we don't have the napkin, but she has those notes written down. And so, Sandy, share some of that stuff with us.
Well, I'm going to have to use my glasses. I'm showing my age, but some of the things that we talked about, and actually this was around 2017, 2018 when we were having this discussion. And as Melvin said, we were traveling and we had stopped to have lunch, and we were really kind of all excited, talking about, not really excited about what the problems we saw, but getting excited about some of the possibilities that could change the problems. And so as we got to talking about, why does this need to be done, and what kind of problems have we seen our nation have due to some of the issues? What kind of issues have been created?
You're talking about issues that we were seeing in our schools.
In our schools, and even in our nation as a whole, in our society as a whole. And we began to talk about the social and moral issues that we've seen, which have affected our family, have affected faith in our nation and morality, even church attendance going down, crime increasing, suicides increasing, both in the young and the old. Substance abuse has increased astronomically. Teen pregnancies, graduation rates going down, and even civility. We're not in just politics, but even in general, people not being civil to one another. And some of the other issues we saw when we talked about political and economic issues was the government dependency of people. They're used to relying on the government providing for them instead of going and working. So there's a lot of welfare. Work ethic decreasing. I've seen that in some of my work and the work I do, just having a hard time finding someone who has a good work ethic, who will come to work on time every day and just has a desire to work and takes pride in that, in earning their income for their families. I'm a nurse, and so in the medical field, I saw a lot of award going to schools for people who were diagnosed with ADHD, and they would get so much more money for that kind of a student. So it seemed like we went from parental love and discipline to medication to try to help with their hyperactivity and things like that. And I'm not saying there's not some kids that have that, the problem where they need a little bit of medication, but I'm saying it seemed like it happened all the time and there was never any other considerations. Job skills and even reading, arithmetic, and learning of history was going down in our country. We talked about the lack of patriotism. Even there's no Pledge of Allegiance read in most schools. I mean, no pledge to the flag, no pride in your country and where you were born. And the lack of appreciation for our own country and the knowledge of its history. Those are some of the things that we talked about, and we began to think about what we could do and why we would do it. And one of the reasons we said we need to understand the progression of education and its impact on culture and society, and ask the question, what can we do to reverse the damage or salvage our nation's children and future generations, because they are our future. They're our leaders in the future, and we are seeing that come to pass over the past couple generations that have come through our school system. And we're seeing, everyone knows what we're seeing, the increase in crime, the lack of civility, as we've already discussed. Anyway, so those were some of the things we discussed, and we began to talk about what we could do to bring about change.
I think one of the things that we were committed to is, look, there are so many individuals and groups that are out, shining spotlights on problems, and that needs to be done. But in a sense, there's a lot of cursing the darkness. But what we really need are solutions, okay? So it's like, okay, if this is a problem, how do we fix it? What could we do better? What changes do we need to make that'll create better results? And as an educator, you always fall back on, okay, so what works? What's proven to work? You start looking at core principles, you start looking at best practices, and you look at history, and you look at all of the different things, and all of a sudden there are trends that are very clear. You do certain things and you get really good results. You change and you think we're going to try something new, and there's always this fallout of the unintended consequence. And a lot of times in education, there's a whole lot of experimentation that goes on, and trust me, we're seeing that everywhere in our educational system today. But experimentation, it's okay to try things, but you better be very careful what you do, because there can be some really terrible consequences. And so shifting all of that around, we started really looking at it. We started looking at what are the big issues in education. What are those big issues? And so we kind of boiled it down to 5 big educational issues. And they're not all just education, but these are areas that are, so to speak, the big stones in any educational conversation. So we concluded that they were these. The role of instruction. I mean, that's a huge area, and it's like a front-loaded end there. The role of instruction, the role of parents, the role of government, the role of faith and morality, and the role, we decided to call it facilities, but really we're focusing on budget appropriations. And where is the money spent? Is it really doing the best good for the children that we're actually all about in education? So those are the things that we kind of zeroed in on. In 2019, August 29th, her birthday, we decided, we had agreed to it, and we filed with the Virginia state and registered that organization, Noah Webster Educational Foundation. By the way, let me say, why Noah Webster Educational Foundation? Well, Noah Webster, widely known as one of the fathers of American education. I mean, he wrote the dictionary, he wrote the New England Primer, he was a contemporary with our founding fathers and had a major influence on starting organized and well-developed education for this fledgling new country. Had a major impact. In fact, his New England Primer, which was fantastic. You can still buy them today, but that was the number one textbook in this country for 150 years or so, and next to the Bible was the number one bestseller. And so major influence. And so we looked at what he did, we looked at what he taught, and we thought, there is something that we could go back to, core principles, best practices, and so we just thought it appropriate to name the organization after him. We started in 2019 legally. We had organized a small board, great people who care and have great passion about what we're doing. So we were just building foundation. We were thinking, we were working, we were writing, we were developing content, and really building up, until we could get to a launching point where we had enough substance, enough stuff worked through, enough networking and connections that we could actually launch. And so we did that in May of 2021, a year ago. And so we are just now coming into our 1-year anniversary, and it has been an exciting ride. I tell you what, we have been blessed. God has blessed us with some great donors, people who support us, and we are getting ready to launch a campaign to really help us scale what's being done now, but they have been the backbone of what's been able to be done. We have a fantastic team of researchers and writers and technical people, and it's crazy how great the team is. It's small, but it's really good, and we are so proud of all of them. Things are just mushrooming and growing. And here, let me just say this: the timing of all of this couldn't have been better. We're believers in God, and we believe that God directs our steps. And it was a difficult decision to start another nonprofit, because we've done 2 of them before this. It's a lot of hard work. But when we finally felt, yes, we have to do this, God knew that COVID was coming over the horizon. And reality is, COVID has been our best friend, because COVID brought the classroom into the living rooms across this country. And all of us have seen over the last year the impact that has had, and all of a sudden the awareness and the passion that parents and grandparents and so forth are starting to have to get involved in education, to make sure that changes are being done. Teachers are starting to stand up, and in spite of all of the pressure being put on them by associations and unions and so forth that are driving all of this agenda, people are finally saying, you know what? This is the time to speak up. This is the time to take a stand. This is the time to bring about reform in our educational system. And so as we focus on what we're doing, we'll be sharing much more with you ahead. There are going to be links so you can learn more about the specifics of what we've been doing. So in the last year, we have really focused on several things. First of all, really communicating out ideas, core principles. We've talked to a lot of experts, content experts, and we've been pushing out material through our blogs, through our podcasts, and so forth to help inform parents, grandparents, educators, legislators, just to help fuel ideas. The more conversation we have, the better it's going to be. So these are things we've done. In addition to that, we started with the Leadership Institute a whole online training to equip conservatives to run for local school boards. We've had hundreds of students take that course in the last few months, and they continue to sign up. You can get that information on our website. After that, one of the issues that after we saw a lot of people starting to win these conservative school board seats in our 2021 election, first thing is resonating in my mind, this is awesome, but then I'm thinking about how many times have we gotten conservatives elected before, and before a year is out, they're checking off the boxes like everybody that we tried to get replaced. And so it's like, all right, I think I know what the issue is. The issue is this: we are helping them get elected, and then we walk away, and they have the school board association shouting in one ear, they have the teachers union shouting in the other ear, and they're all coordinated, and they're just driving the agenda, and the school board members are kind of caught in the middle. They don't really have a whole lot of other resources and ideas and connections, and they're really being told many times what to do. And so I started networking with a number of conservative policy organizations and other entities, and I said we need to create resource banks, and so that these newly elected people and other conservatives, there's an issue they've got a question, they need some answers about this, that, or something. Look, none of us have all the answers, but together we have a lot of expertise and a lot of professionals, and so let's create alternative ideas for them when they need them. And so we actually put together our first school board summit here in Virginia. It was well attended. It seemed like it went really, really well, because we've actually started getting contacts from a number of other states wanting us to come and help them organize the same kind of thing, and we're starting to collaborate with a lot of entities. So the bottom line is this: we believe that, look, we can't solve everybody's problems, but if we understand what the problems are and we work with many other experts to create tools and resources that local folk can take and use to bring change where they are, where they become that agent of change, together we're going to get this done. So we're very excited about it. You can learn a lot more by going to the notes on the video description, and I think there's stuff there that you can follow that'll help take you to specific things. And of course, always you can go to our website, NWEF, like Noah Webster Educational Foundation, NWEF.org. But here's what we're committed to. People say, well, what do you focus on in education? So most organizations focus on homeschooling or parochial schools or Christian schools or public schools or whatever. Our approach is, look, all of these entities have their space. We believe that more choice is better, and our focus is education as a whole. And so that's what we're about, and thank you for sharing our story today. And anything you want to say as we wrap it up?
I just want to say that I'm very passionate about Noah Webster. As I said before, I have almost 20 grandchildren. I have 6 grandchildren and their spouses, and I'm concerned about the future that they have in this country. And I really care about the future of this country, and our kids are the future. And if we don't get the kids now, we don't get a hold of their minds and their hearts now, we will lose our country. And so I encourage you to take a look at Noah Webster Educational Foundation and join our team.
Absolutely. We'd welcome that.